This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Radar, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Karan Soni about Miracle Workers End Times. How are you, Karan?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Do you remember what it was that appealed to you about this show back when you signed on for season one?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I what appealed to me initially was that it was starring Daniel Radcliffe. I'm like a huge Harry Potter fan, and I just remember being like, I got an audition for it, and I just remember reading the email and being like, Daniel Radcliffe is doing a TV show? Like that seems insane. And then they had sent the first script over, and I remember really liking the script and the character, and then just desperately wanting to be in the show and like I usually am pretty good about like going in for audition and then like just trying to forget about it. But this was one where like I was the annoying actor who would like call my agent and be like, so like have we heard anything? Which is usually like a disaster because if they'll call you if they want you. And so they always have that awkward thing of like, no. But eventually it ended up working out. But at that time, it was supposed to be a limited series. So we were supposed to do just like that one season and I think as we were shooting the first season, they were like, there's a world in which, we would just play different characters in different worlds. And it just sounded so crazy to me. I was like, that's never going to happen. And then we ended up doing that, which has been crazy. I didn't know that the show was going to go like that when we started.
It's been really great, especially with such a long wait for season four. I'm glad it's finally here.
Yeah. So are we. We shot it this time last year. We wrapped, I think, July or August of last year. And yeah, it was like a very intense shoot because we shot in the middle of the summer in LA in like apocalyptic locations, which disturbingly are very close to Los Angeles, as we've discovered. Yeah, and it was I it was like difficult, a lot of outdoor shoots and like a lot of heat, so we're like very happy that it's finally coming out.
Well, it feels like it might be somewhat similar to season two and season three, because season two is like before technology existed, which it doesn't really exist in the future, this, end times.
Yes.
And season three is before anything really, just sort of wandering
Yeah.
but this is, I think it's more purposely just dilapidated.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very they did such an amazing job. Like the main set, the town center and stuff, they I think used the dome from Burning Man and like they got all this. It looked really like real, but it was all built in like a parking lot of the sound stage. It was really crazy, but we didn't really get to see it before, but they completely transformed it. And then our wrap party for like the season we had in the town square. Like we used the set to have the wrap party, which is I don't know if that's very professional, but it was really fun. So we got to like use the set in many ways.
You have post-apocalyptic films or TV shows that you enjoy that you were looking forward to sort of parody a little here?
The Matrix is something I really enjoyed. So when that episode came up, it was really fun. And I actually got to wear Lawrence Fishburne's one of his actual coats from The Matrix. That's why it doesn't fit me perfectly well because he's a much broader man. But that was really, really fun. Like that was like a big one for my childhood. But the more recent ones, I loved the Hunger Games books. So I loved those movies too. So that's like more of the recent stuff. But nowadays, I find the post-apocalyptic for me, like I can watch it in this sense because it's like comedy and silly. But if it's too gritty, I feel like the real world is too scary enough for me. So I like epic fantasy and that kind of world a little bit more now. But yeah, it was really fun to parody a lot of that stuff. One of my favorite things in the first episode is like when they're eating the rats, and I just think all of that stuff is so great for the show because we can really kind of go there with a lot of it. And I think there's so much to parody and make fun of.
I think the two things I would say about this season are that it really like it's very explicit in the
Yeah.
parodies. Like whereas the past few seasons I was like, well, this is making fun of something sort of general. Here's like, no, I know exactly, even if it's not the Matrix XXX,
Yeah.
but also that really just keeps going, especially, people haven't seen it yet, but in that Matrix episode with Steve's character, I think there's some, some stuff that just
Yep.
doesn't really hold back. What does that do to you
Yeah.
to be on a set like this where things are just going so far?
I think, this year it was one of those things where we really did feel like we were just throwing it all at the wall and just being like, let's just, like you said, fully commit to like what this show can be. Because it kind of did change from the beginning of it becoming really this thing where we do kind of go deep into each genre or whatever. And I think like everyone sort of was like, this might be our last time around. So like, let's just put it all like out there. And I'm really glad it was really the writers who sort of like came up with the most insane. Like every week would be like, what is happening? But yeah, that I'm glad you brought up that episode because we were like, is Steve going to consent to like this storyline? And he did. And I haven't seen any of it, but I just remember coming in the next day after they had shot that stuff and all of the hair and makeup people being like, yeah, he like really went for it with the skeleton. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's just truly unhinged.
Well, I enjoyed also the way you're, working a relationship with Steve. It's fun to see you on screen, especially I think season one and then season three would be your, sort of
Yeah.
closest relationships. What I'm sure you were aware of him in the business. What has it
Yes.
been like working with him?
It's very cool working with him. You really do feel like you're in the presence of like a legend. And the rest of us are kind of the same age and we're kind of like goofing off. But then whenever he's around, we're like, oh gosh, like, right, we're like on a show, we've got to act, like we've got to do. But it's really incredible because he's got that thing that I feel like any veteran in any industry has, which is that it comes so effortlessly to him. And a lot of times at the table read will sort of be sitting there and he's like very quickly like looked at the script and he's like the best at the table read. And like we've been preparing and like working on it for the days before and we're just like, God, how does he do it? But yeah, he's just a pro. And like he's also like a really fun hang. I think we really all bonded with him specifically in the second season because we shot it in Prague and we were all kind of in another country together for a while. I think that's when we all really bonded. But he, like Daniel, like genuinely really loves the show, and it's always nice, like when the first and second people on the call sheet, who also happen to be iconic, like their job, because then it just is really fun that they are happy to be there and everyone's sort of happy to be there. But yeah, I keep thinking like now that the experience is over, I was like, what did I learn from him about acting? And I truly don't know because he just literally looks at the pages and then he's perfect in the first take. And you're like, I don't know what the process was or what happened, but I'm happy to, just be in a scene with him and let him shine.
And you mentioned Daniel Radcliffe as a big draw, and I'm sure you're not the only person who said, I want to see Daniel Radcliffe in something else. But I think that has the real potential, especially with this season, to shock people because it's just so different than what they're used to, unless they've seen extras. I think that's a good sort of
Yes.
preview. Even so, not quite the same level of, extreme. But I especially I think you just had some great opportunities to work with them. Season four, you're not quite as like directly involved. All of the Matrix episode again. I hope everyone really enjoys that episode. That's a lot of fun. What has your expectation been like, in terms of actually working with him?
I think we all, me, John, Geraldine, all really feel like we're really good friends with Daniel now. It's really nice. I think it was really great for him too, because other than Harry Potter, like he's not done something where he works with the same cast again and again. Like he's done a lot of really cool projects, obviously, but they're like films that are shorter or like nothing that's like been we come back every year and do it. And I think he sort of, if I can speak for him, I think he enjoyed that experience too of like kind of reuniting every year and like doing it with the same group of people like your age, but like now as an adult and not as a kid. And I think like I just have so much respect for him. Like I just think he's such a good person and then such a good performer, and I admire his career so much. Like he is the true artist, and like this show would not exist if he had not said yes to it. Like it's an expensive show and it's like very ambitious, and like because he agreed to do it, we get to make like the weirdest show on TV and get to be in it. So I just really admire him, and I would love to work with him again, and I think we'll all be friends for like a really long time for sure. He is like one of those people that like it'll be like the hottest day and it's like 100 degrees in Santa Clarita and we're shooting this crazy scene and he is so happy and excited to scene that you're just like, oh right, like he's not lost like any love for like acting or making things or anything, which is really cool.
Really nice. and I'm not sure as many people know Geraldine yet, but they're about to. She's got two really
Yeah.
big movies coming up. But it's really fun to watch the two of you together this season just because you get to
Yeah.
play these friends. But it's
Yeah.
even more fun because I've seen 7 Days, which I
Oh
really,
my
really enjoyed.
gosh. Thank you. Oh, that
And
was yeah.
I'm I'm curious how that came about because you two don't interact that much on this show, and certainly not in that kind of like antagonistic way that makes that movie so fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that was a project that came about partially because of my partner who had the idea of trying to make something in COVID. And we threw around some ideas and we really made that in like August of 2020. So like deep COVID with like very little money. And he sort of had the idea of being like, let's just make something with two people. And like we thought initially we'd just shoot it on our phone. Like we really just were trying to be creative in a very depressing creative time. And we kind of had this idea of wanting to like look at that aspect of Indian culture, like modern sort of matchmaking and stuff. And then we sort of wrote it with her in mind always. And me and her, even though on screen it's so funny, we don't on the show have as many scenes together. Like that's like in between me, her, and John. That's all we do is hang out like in every location we're in, and we're like very codependent on location. So I felt like I had this like kind of comfortability with her, and she's obviously so great. And so we wrote that role with her in mind when we wrote that movie, and she like said yes and got on a plane in like a very scary time and came to LA and like made that weird little movie with us. And yeah, it was so actually weird when we were filming that. I remember after the first day because we shot it in 8 days, like the full movie, and so we were shooting like 10, 12 pages a day. So we were like doing what would be almost half an episode of Miracle Workers in one day. And it was like, I think we finished the first day and we both were like, I think that's the most we've ever acted in a scene together. And we've done like 2 seasons of this show. But um it was really cool. Like I think that's what's so exciting about like even beyond the show, like getting to work with other people in other capacities and stuff. Cause yeah, I think we've just scratched the surface of what any of us can do together. So.
I think it's also too early for like a best movies about COVID retrospective, but that definitely is up there for me, and I hope people continue to discover it because I think,
Oh my
as you said,
God.
it has with Indian culture, it has a additional timeless quality that will live on beyond masks and sudden
I
coughs in
hope
people's
so.
faces.
Listen, we were very nervous and we were like, is anyone gonna want to watch this? And then in the best case scenario, we were like, it might be cathartic for people to like reflect back on this thing and this experience or whatever. And then also hopefully the stories beyond just that. And luckily I think we with some people struck that balance. And if some people are like, it's too soon or whatever, I'm like, I get it. Like, but I think it'll always exist as like a capsule for that time.
I think people just haven't found it yet. And I
Yeah.
think that's true about this show too. And so I want to
Yeah.
close this out by asking, do you have a favorite from the four characters you've played so far on this
Oh,
show? I say so far,
yeah.
hopefully, right? Maybe we'll get season five and
Uh,
beyond. Who knows?
who knows? I think I have to say the first, so boring, but the first is my favorite, just because there's something about like, at least it's such an actory thing, but when you get a job you really wanted and then you're actually doing it, it just holds such a special place in my heart. Like to have gone to work with Daniel and Steve and kind of in this very silly, goofy show. And so the first season, anytime I think of the show, I really reflect back on like that first season and being like, holy shit, like I'm doing this show is so crazy. So I think that one to me will always be my favorite. The most favorite, just to like life experience beyond like acting was when we did the second one because it was in 2019 before COVID. We were in Prague for like 3 months. We would like take the Eurorail to Vienna, and like it honestly was like this is insane. Like how are we allowed to like do this? And we lived all in the same apartment building in Prague, and we would just like go for these dinners. Like it just like was a very special time. But I think acting wise, maybe the first one is my favorite.
I just ask one more question based on
Yes.
that. Do you think that was the best job or the actual job that you had? Like, would you want that actual job in real life from season one or the acting job?
No, it's too stressful. It's way, and the idea of like working for like a horrible boss like that who's like an idiot, that's way too stressful. So yeah, no, there's no way I would want that job. I'd much rather, come in for a few days and then like leave. But yeah, but I did like the suits. I like the outfits. That was cool. But again, I don't want to wear that every day. But yeah, the acting job was
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone gets excited for Miracle Worker season 4, and make sure to seek out 7 Days if you haven't seen it yet.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.